You're watching Talking About Orks. In this episode of Talking About Orks, we're going to be going over some of the orc rules, some of the orc rules controversies, and the army special rules. I've gone over some of these, or actually most of these rules controversies in the individual unit videos, but I want to have everything in one place for one easy reference for anyone playing orcs. So if you have any questions, this will be the video to reference as opposed to having to go back through to the individual unit videos. And that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with the orc special rules. There are two main special rules. One is Wah. Orcs live for the moment when they can charge into battle screaming Wah at the top of their lungs. Once per game, the orc player can declare a Wah during his shooting phase. This may not normally be declared during the first turn, with the exception of that being Weird Boys. For the duration of that turn, all friendly orc units that have the Wah special rule gain fleet of foot. If a unit rolls a 1 while making his Wah, the orcs start fighting and that unit loses a model. Actually, it takes a wound, so you do get an armor save against that. The Wah is one of the main orc rules that changed in the new codex, replacing the old power of Wah, which was initiative, which doubled your initiative. I like this one better. Getting that fleet of foot gives you that extra movement. The asshat move is to run first and then declare your Wah. While technically legal by the words in the rules, in other words, raw, I wouldn't do it. I would never do it, and I would not play against anyone who does do it. It's just beardy and cheesy, and it's just not worth doing. The whole point of it is to you can still shoot first. So, I mean, if it's just during your shooting phase, so you can shoot up some stuff, see what survives your shooting, and then you can decide if you want to Wah or not. But don't try and run and then claim gaining fleet of foot. The other orc special rule is mob rule. Mob rule allows you to replace your leadership with the number of models in the unit, and any unit with 11 or more becomes fearless. Mob rule, of course, has its own controversy, just like everything else, and that's if the mob rule counts for each model's leadership or for the unit's leadership. And my response to that is that there is no definition of unit leadership in the rulebook. A unit's leadership is defined as the leadership of the highest leadership of any single model in there. So in order for a unit to have a leadership of 10, a model has to have a leadership of 10. And where that comes into play is something like Mind War, where they're trying to Mind War your knob, and they're claiming that you have a leadership of 7, so you have to use that for the Mind War. Mob rule doesn't apply. Mob rule absolutely applies, because the knob has leadership based on the mob rule. And also, of course, they say specifically in the codex that Weird Boys get to use their mob rule for their leadership check, so it would definitely apply to Mind War. And lastly, Furious Charge, universal special rule. Most orc units, I think the only that doesn't is Gretchen. Most orc units have the Furious Charge special rule, which gives them +1 strength, +1 initiative on the charge. It still means your boy is going to be running initiative 3, which means they're going to be going after Marines, but that's fine because that extra strength is actually, I think, much more useful. Because I used to play it with the double initiative, and while it was nice still being at strength 3, limits what you can do. Strength 4 is much better. So let's talk about some of the other rules controversies that go on. I've already talked about Mind War. So let's talk about the big one, which is the custom force field. Custom force field is always strewn with controversy. Custom force field, of course, the wording says any unit within 6 inches gains a 5+ cover save. In addition, vehicles within 6 inches count as obscured. What this will do is that some people will claim that vehicles also get a 5+ cover save, because the main rulebook says that if you have a cover save created by war gear or otherwise, it is a 4+, unless specified otherwise. Some people consider the 5+ for any unit to be specified otherwise, but I don't think the wording and the precedents and the way the rules are written, just in general, not just in the Ork Codex, but in everything GW writes, a separate sentence is basically a separate rule. And even going through the rule book, I was trying to back this up. It turns out that separate sentences, separate rules, are actually different paragraphs entirely. There's very few paragraphs in there that are multiple sentences. So different sentence, different rule, different application. Vehicles get a 4+ cover save. Vehicle squadrons under the KFF. This is something that I've had to actually change my mind on recently. The KFF says vehicles within 6 inches of count is obscured. That means only the vehicles, not vehicle units, not vehicle squadrons, but vehicles. So that means only the actual vehicles, or in the case, the only vehicle squadrons you have buggies and cans. So only the actual vehicles within 6 inches count as obscured. All the other vehicles do not. So you have to have at least a majority, or 50% of the vehicle squadron within the actual KFF to gain a 4+ cover save. Otherwise, you gain only the 5+ cover save for it being a unit. So I've been actually doing that with my cans, keeping 2 of them within the KFF whenever possible. Let's see, Def Roller. I've talked about the Def Roller before. Does it hit vehicles? Does it not hit vehicles? It boils down to the one sentence in the rulebook that says a ram is a form of tank shock. What does that really mean? Be nice if we had an official ruling. We don't, so we'll have to live with whatever you decide on. Same with the reinforced ram and ramming. To me, a reinforced ram should be able to ram on a truck, because basically it's fluffy, and in reality it's not going to do any damage anyway. The most you can hope for is a strength 6 hit at most, and that's if you get the full 18 or 19 inches of movement. It's AV10, so you get no armor bonus. It's not a tank, so you don't get that bonus. So strength 6 is the most you can get, and whatever it rams will be probably destroying the truck in return. So I don't see why trucks with rams can't ram. I think it's fluffy, and it's definitely not very dangerous. A couple more, the way rules interact with independent characters. Snickrot's ambush. Can you join an independent character to Snickrot's unit in reserve and have the IC come on with them? Again, by the strict letter of the rules, I think it's permissible, but it's a complete asshat move I would never actually do, and I wouldn't play against anyone who tries it. And the last one I want to go over is Pain Boys and independent characters. And the question is, do independent characters joined gain feel no pain? This also applies to Space Marine Apothecaries and independent characters. As obviously rules is intended that they do. I mean, otherwise why would they be there? Especially the Apothecary. And I think the raw is enough to support it in the fact that the unit gains, and when you put an IC with the unit, it's part of the unit. So I think the whole unit does gain feel no pain. But the argument is just as valid because the universal special rule is not transferred to the independent character, so it doesn't get feel no pain. So I think the raw, that's definitely a unclear raw debate, but obviously rules is intended as the IC does get feel no pain. This goes for the war banner too. It's a war gear that gives the unit +1 weapon skill, so I think it's clear that the IC gains the +1 weapon skill as well for the same reason. So if you have any questions about the rules, go ahead and keep them in this video, as opposed to individual unit videos, and maybe we can get a concise location for all the rules questions. And that should wrap this up. Thanks for watching.